thank you for being here today. Really appreciate your time. I'm really excited. Our panel is leveraging games as a powerful marketing medium. I'm going to describe my role in a second, but first I'm going to give my esteemed, renowned colleagues an opportunity to introduce themselves.
I like the esteemed part. My name is Christian Meyer from GSN, which many of you may know as the Game Show Network. And while that may pull up images of Wheel of Fortune and Family Feud and the Newlywed Game, the digital pieces of our business have actually been growing dramatically over the last few years. And now we sit as one of the world's top game publishers across social, mobile, and web platforms. We really have a strong focus on what I would call prize-driven entertainment. So between prizing on television, on virtual currency games that we run on the various platforms, as well as real prize gaming that we run powering a lot of marketing solutions, which we're going to talk about today. We know a lot about how currencies and rewards change consumer behavior. And I am up here with three of our partners that power a lot of our marketing solutions in our environments, and they've been kind enough to let me show a quick reel so that you guys can just get you know, a sense of which part of gaming we fit in.
At GSN Games, we know that winning moments create lasting impressions, and the suspense of seeing if you won is just as engaging. We know these moments better than anyone, and we know how to let your brand share them. GSN Games provides a multi-platform opportunity to reach over 56 million unique visitors. We've built a name for ourselves in a market where 1 billion people are playing games. Consumers spend over 53% of their time on Facebook playing games and 65% of their time on mobile devices playing games. We connect our players with brands by providing emotional moments filled with celebration, engagement, and fun. So whether it's the thrill of victory or the satisfaction of that breakthrough moment, GSN Games puts winning first for players and brands. GSN Games. Level up your brand.
My name is Ari Brandt. I am the CEO and co-founder of MediaBrix. MediaBrix is one of the leading advertising and services providers for social and mobile games. What we did when we built out MediaBrix was something similar to what Christian was just describing. We realized that in the gaming space in particular, it's a mass medium, and there's a lot of people in the space that were approaching it very similar to every other form of content that was on mobile or on the web, running interstitials, running IAB standard units, and that's wrong. Gaming is a unique experience, and what we did is aligned with breakthrough moments and emotional targeting. These are all triggers that already exist within the gaming environment to provide value to a user during a game experience. So that's what MediaBrix does. We do it well, and we're happy to be partnering with this group up here.
My name is James Kissell. I work at Google based out of our New York City offices. I work specifically in the mobile app and gaming space with many publishers. And so I represent a lot of ad technology that mobile app developers and gaming publishers will use in order to monetize their properties. And so I hope to add that perspective to the discussion today.
Well, as you guys can see, we definitely have people up here on the stage, the five of us with very diverse backgrounds. My background at Mindshare, my role is to educate brands on the gaming space and why it should be used as a communications platform. Then I help them build out their strategies, and lastly, I assist in the execution of tactics. So with that, this is our agenda today. We're going to walk through today's gaming landscape. I'm going to throw you guys out some stats as to why gaming is so important for brands. Then we're going to get into our panel discussion, where we'll learn the different perspectives from various sides of the gaming space, and then lastly we'll wrap up and take a Q&A from you guys. So to start, we sell gaming today as engagement entertainment. It's really a phrase that resonates with our brands and with our internal team, sort of breaks the stereotypes of gaming per se. And the reason is it's a lean forward environment. Brands are embraced in gaming. People are playing, brands add to the experience. through the offering of equities and enhancing the experience of gameplay itself. Advertising, as just mentioned, it's for those reasons that advertising is embraced, and it's played across multiple playing platforms. So really, to break the stereotypes of the word gaming, we call it engagement entertainment, because that's exactly what it is. Gaming, it moves the needle for brands. So like I said, it drives engagements. Those engagements result in qualitative lifts across the consumer journey, awareness, consideration, recommendation, purchase intent, and then lastly, those lifts eventually drive to actual sales themselves. And brands can reach 2 billion people. That's a huge number, 2 billion people. It's up 33% from a year ago when it was at 1.2 billion people. Gaming grows. That's all it's ever done. It's continued to grow from its inception whenever it was born as an entertainment medium, which has been around forever. And next year, I am absolutely positive that those numbers are just going to continue to increase, specifically with mobile, with social, really have resulted in a boom across the space. Certainly know that many people in this room play games, and we're going to continue to see that number rise year over year. Just a couple stats on the audience. 75% of guys play games, no surprise there, but 46% of all players are female. Huge number, again, reason being mobile has completely changed the landscape in addition to social in the past couple years. And another stat, 73% of moms play games. So for brands, that's incredibly important because it's an opportunity for them to reach that mom target that they crave to reach so much. Time spent is huge. You compare playing games to that on YouTube and on Facebook, and there isn't much of a comparison, really 5 to 1. 1 billion hours spent per day, and it's not just because people are playing Call of Duty or Grand Theft Auto 5 for 5, 6, 7, 8 hours a day. It's because people are jumping onto their mobile devices and playing 5, 10 minutes at a time, an hour later playing 5, 10 minutes, etc. So it adds up. So these numbers are absolutely huge, and it's really a place that brands should be as a result of this. And mobile, it just continues to grow and evolve. We look at where it was in the year 2000, where it is now. Really, the evolution is mind-blowing. Gaming is built on a foundation of technology, so it's always continuing to evolve. So what we're going to see in this space in the next couple months, days, years is going to be absolutely incredible, always seeing new things. And then here are some of the numbers. Mobile, in this year, it's at 662 million people globally. By 2016, it's going to be close to 1.3 billion people, so close to doubling. Absolutely an enormous number, and it's really probably my most favorite place in the gaming space to explore, and it certainly resonates with gamers across the world as well. So what does all of this mean? For brands, it means opportunity. So again, you're hitting a massive audience with these hugely engaging experiences, unobtrusive environments, but beyond that, added value and pricing discounts for brands are astronomical. Every program in the gaming space is a first of its kind experience. Vendors get behind them like no other, and we see absolutely incredible added value and pricing discounts opportunities. We've had studios come to us and say, hey, we're going to build a 30-second spot for you, which is huge for brands. It's a $750,000, $1 million savings for them. They don't have to go to creative agencies. They can get a studio to do it for them, and that's just one example of the added value that we see and negotiate for our brands when it comes to the gaming space. Brands can target by player type, so what we do is we align a target with a specific player type, core, casual, and social. Core, the guys primarily, head kills, touchdowns, playing for advancement and achievement purposes. Casual gamers, a little bit more female-based, but again, that's a bit of a stereotype nowadays as well, as anybody playing mobile games for escapism or relaxation purposes can be considered a casual gamer. And then lastly, the social gamer, who's really connecting for the reason of who's playing for the reason of connecting with others. Still have a bit of a competitive edge, but certainly not there as it pertains to the core gamers. So these are the 3 gamer types. And brands can reach them all day, every day. It's not a matter of just playing your console at night or early in the morning when the wife is away in your little man cave and what have you. It's about playing all day long, from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep, on all different types of platforms. Certainly studios are embracing that and extending their platforms to second screen experiences. So this is another example of how the space continues to evolve. And brands have a multitude of selections to choose from when it comes to opportunity. There's scalable, effective options from video, mini games, media, and sponsorships to the heavier, more expensive, more timely opportunities such as integrations and then retail, out-of-home, and e-commerce opportunities that we've seen explode over the last couple of years. So some great opportunities for brands to drive direct ROI through these types of programs, and we're just going to continue to see more opportunities hit the market as gaming continues to grow and evolve. Even more, gaming works with other media forms. So again, it's a very, very active, lean-forward media environment. You're playing a game, you're leaning forward, you're engaging with the brand, you're aware of the brand, you're aware of the brand's messaging and what it's trying to convey. And then when you hit those more passive forms of media, such as television and magazines, because the message of awareness has already resonated, because it's already sort of broken that initial plane, the user who's consumed that gaming media and is now consuming these more passive forms of media are more likely to really have that message and those deeper levels of messaging sink in. An example I can give, if you're playing an NBA game and that Kia message comes up, by the time you're watching the game, those elements of the car that the company is trying to convey, it sinks through a little bit more as a result, because that initial plane of awareness has already been broken. Brands can optimize on the go, so gaming is built on a foundation of activity, so whether that's passes caught, levels beaten, or achievements reached, marketers can use this real-time activity to optimize on the go and really hit the people that are most engaged with the game and therefore the most engaged with their brand. And lastly, brands can take advantage of gamification. Gamification drives retainment via engagement. John is absolutely going to talk to this. Mechanics include personalization, rewards, and activity. Implementing these three elements into a non-gamified environment to make it gamified can drive even further engagement with a brand. So simply put, gaming continues to smash all barriers. You compare it to music, you compare it to movies, there is no comparison. Gravity a couple weeks ago made $55 million in a weekend. 2 weeks before that, Grand Theft Auto made $1 billion. So gaming it continues to grow, it's huge, it continues to smash all barriers, and like we like to say, our brands must get involved. So I'm going to be quiet now. I'm going to pass it off to these guys to really take the attention away. For more information, let me know. We can certainly circulate this book that we spent about a year writing. It's called Let's Play, a How-To Guide to Winning in Gaming. My mom loves it. I hope you guys do too. But with that, we're gonna move on to leveraging games as a powerful marketing medium. And my first question would be for Christian, as the person that put this all together. We certainly gave examples of how the gaming space can be used. What other sort of exciting examples can you sort of share upon?
So one thing I'll just add to what Jeff went through is more money will be spent this month on games than on any other form of leisure entertainment, with the exception of eating out and pay television. So it is completely dominating, and I like to say that we're in the age of the gamification of everything. As you see leaderboards, achievements, rewards make their way into almost every content vertical, from health to TV to shopping. But it really makes you sort of peel back the covers on what actually defines a game. At GSN, we have a very sort of specific view on exactly what does constitute a game. In our view specifically is that games are containers of repeatable suspense. That if you really peel back to what is the essence of a game compared to consumer experiences that do not have that one attribute of suspense to them, then they do become more like puzzles and contests and tasks, and that the magic of games is really in delivering that core consumer experience. If you think about it, it's totally different than any other content vertical you might imagine. Can you get somebody to go watch Game of Thrones on HBO? Absolutely. Can you get them to go do it 25 times for the same episode? That's a little bit of a harder task. But it is exactly the design of games as their core deliverable that they can repeat that experience and pulling consumers to that lean forward attribute that Jeff just mentioned that drives so much magic of what games are about. And a lot of times you'll come up with consumer experiences that see themselves as game-like, but are, probably do not come to the surface of your mind. So we met with the marketing team of QVC. QVC sees their consumer experience as very game-like, that they are driven not by any practical need of their consumers to go necessarily buy some of their products and services, but in fact by the thrill of the chase of being a fantastic and well-informed shopper, that there is in fact a leaderboard of their best consumers that come and buy and have the pride and achievement of going and shopping in that whole context, which changes your worldview about how you might both create that consumer experience and how we as marketers might go and create opportunities inside those experiences.
Thank you. I guess, Ari, my next question is for you. From what I understand, MediaBrix positions its entire product suite around an emotional moment. What is it about the games business that has you excited about building your business?
Thanks. Well, yeah, you touched on it already. Games are unique in how they're built. And just to Christian's point, you can't get somebody to watch Game of Thrones 25 times in a row, but you can get somebody to play Candy Crush or a slot game 1,000 times in a row. And those mechanics that are built in the games weren't accidental. They all trigger these moments of achievement, moments of rescue, moments of need in a game, and there's a lot of reward that goes on with that. So what we did when we built out our product suite is we have bi-directional communication with all these games. So we know if somebody's stuck on level 3 or level 5 and they can't get past that level, typically what would happen is that person will abandon the game. They get frustrated and they leave the game. What we do is offer a moment of rescue. So a brand comes in, it's positioned as a hero, and says to this user, hey, we see you're stuck on level 3, engage in this ad from Coca-Cola, and we'll give you a free booster to get you through the level. So it's a form of value exchange, but it's a form of rescue where the brand actually is positioned as a hero and frankly remembered for the remainder of that game and for beyond. We talked about purchase intent and brand lift. The numbers are just through the roof in gaming. We've run hundreds upon hundreds of campaigns, and at first I thought it was an aberration in the data, but the reality is purchase intent and brand lift go through the roof when brands associate with games in what I'm calling an accretive manner. There's people out there in the space that are, I'd say, running interstitials or running kind of IAB standard units and treating gaming as if it's like all other forms of content, and frankly, the exact opposite of that. So we built a platform that, I hate using the word native, but is native to the gaming environment.
It's a great transition to the next question, which is for John. Certainly, Ari, as you mentioned, it's very important for marketers and for publishers to establish a native experience for brands, specifically ones that are scalable and ones that will also not break the market, break the bank for those that are paying for it. John, how do you address that at Dailybreak?
It starts, first of all, with the foundation of what the gaming industry has done for the market, and that is that people embrace it. They embrace the functionality. They embrace the break in their day, hence the name Dailybreak. What we've done, frankly, is we've created an environment where people raise their hands and they say they like this stuff. They like the trivia. They like the current events. They like the drag and drop. They like the fun aspect of the experience. But we're now faced with a brand. And a brand has an opportunity to launch a product a traditional way or a way that augments that tradition with the power of gamification. So I'll give you a brief example. Denny's came to us, and they were anxious to introduce a build-your-own pancake program. So the idea was, how do you get people to know about a new program from Denny's? How do you get people to care? Well, first you find people who like this kind of content, because it is content marketing. And next, you build a story based upon that brand's initiatives, that brand's KPIs. And effectively, what Denny's wanted to do is they wanted to brand and educate and create a sense of fun. So what they did is they created an environment that started with a brief explanation of where did pancakes come from? And there was a video asset, and then there was a drag and drop. And then there was an opportunity for people to build their own pancakes. And whatever ingredients they wanted to use, from the flour to the toppings to the sauces. And what they ended up with was a custom-branded Denny's pancake that they could name. Now, it didn't stop there. Then there was an opportunity to post your creation on Facebook and on every other social media. So what happened is, with a store locator and a downloadable coupon included, You created a sense of awareness, a sense of whimsy, if you will, about something that a banner ad, as Ari accurately predicted, would have no impact. Now what we've done in a pure cost per engagement model, zero risk of waste, is given a branding experience that drives to retail, that builds upon what that brand was hoping to do. And guess what? 5.5 minutes on average spent with the experience. Now, is it different than playing a skills-based game? It sure is, but it's informed by the kind of person that likes to do that. So we have, I think, an opportunity, as Jeff accurately pointed out. We're in a marketplace that has embraced gamification, but now is when the fun starts. Now is when you go to a brand and you say, how do you use this assets, this behavior, this content storytelling in a way that is opt-in, that people embrace? And when you do that and you create an experience that it's not a shell game. Denny's logo is on the front before they press start. They know what they're doing, and yet they do it over and over again. Now, would Denny's be successful running that same program, like, doing Words with Friends 30 times? Absolutely not. So it means that we as a gaming company, or as a native engagement platform, which is more accurately how we define ourselves, we push ourselves that our content isn't just same old, same old. It's got to create a brand experience.
Thanks. No, those numbers are awesome. So yes, absolutely. So James, this is for you. Certainly have seen the rise of Facebook games a couple years ago and how it completely appended games as we know them, introducing games to an entirely different demographic. And then we've certainly seen that landscape shift. Now, mobile, as mentioned, is all the hype. Certainly not going anywhere as far as we can see. But working at Google, you certainly have a unique perspective on that. How do you see mobile continuing to evolve, and what excites you in the space?
Well, Jeff, I think as you mentioned earlier in your presentation, as we saw in the video too, mobile has clearly grown significantly and has evolved very, very fast in the last few years. This year alone, more people are expected to access the internet through a mobile device than through desktop. Tablets are the fastest growing devices ever. In 2010, I think people spent about 34 minutes on their phones. In 2013, people are spending 84 minutes on their phones. The majority of that is in applications, and as we saw, a big chunk of that time is spent in games. Mobile's has played a huge role in the gaming ecosystem, I feel like, in the last few years, and has definitely evolved that ecosystem. Particularly, mobile has provided new opportunities for new developers to enter the market and to develop and create new games. Mobile has significant reach. And I think the easiest way to see how mobile has kind of shifted things, how many people in here have a game on their phone right now? How many people have played that game in the last 3 months, or a game on their phone in the last 3 months? How many people have played a game on Facebook in the last 3 months? How many people have played a game on a game console in the last 3 months? Okay, so that just with this small sample, or it's quite a nice sample, but with this sample, you can clearly see that mobile has definitely had an impact on the gaming space. And I think traditionally we look at people who play games as those people who sit in their mom's basement and play these hardcore strategy games, when in fact it's our peers who are playing the majority of games right now. These are social games. And mobile has had a huge impact on that. We talked earlier that, I live in New York City, and it's super easy for me to pull my phone out and play a quick session of Candy Crush if I want to on the subway to work. So I can get these bite-sized pieces of entertainment through a game. And as it's mentioned, there are lots of technology that is becoming available to support this gaming ecosystem. So MediaBrix, for instance, being able to reach a user, reach a game player during a time of need, or when they're being rewarded for something. I'd be on Candy Crush, or maybe not Candy Crush specifically, but not anymore, but on a different game, and it's like, wow, I'm on the subway, and I need to get past this level, and a brand can immediately engage with me, whereas in the past that wasn't possible to do that. So I think it's really neat to see how mobile has done that. Where things are going in the future, I think it's I think there are two things that are going on. One is, you know, we think about mobile, but what is mobile really? We tend to, you know, put desktop and mobile in two different buckets when we live in a multi-screen world where, you know, we've got desktop, we've got mobile phones, we've got tablets, connected televisions are becoming popular. There's a Google Glass session going on here at this conference as well, Google Glass, Samsung Galaxy Gear, the watches, all those things. It's not just about gaming on mobile devices and gaming on desktop and gaming on social. Gaming is going to be everywhere and it's going to be a part of all these different devices. And it's going to be really important for technology providers like Google and other companies to be able to find ways to be able to identify audiences across those different screens. And that technology, unfortunately, there isn't a privacy-safe way to do that. But it's very important for Google. It's very important for all these large technologies to be able to help brands, you know, being able to identify those audiences across those devices. The other thing I would say is in the mobile space specifically within games, in-app purchase is huge. So a lot of these gaming publishers, these gaming developers are monetizing their games using microtransactions or what we call in-app purchases. Candy Crush. So, you know, Ari just commented that, you know, Candy Crush, you know, we can't run ads in there. Well, they made the strategic move to remove ads from their game. Bad decision. But they currently, I read a Reuters report or something just a few weeks ago. They're pulling in $2 to $5 million a day. $5 billion evaluation for their IPO for Candy Crush. There's another company in Japan, Gung Ho. In Q2, they had a market cap that was twice the size of Electronic Arts. And that's within a year. And it just shows how quickly the space evolves with like these big hits and how much money people are spending on these games. And what's interesting is that the mobile space has evolved from within the gaming space where, you know, people used to pay to download a game. They used to pay 99 cents or used to pay $2.99. Now there's this free-to-play model where people go in, they play a little bit, and then it's like, hey, I'm struggling, you know, I want to play another 5 minutes, or, you know, I go in, I play this war game and I die too fast. Well, I can pay 99 cents for a virtual shield that will allow me to play a little longer. And so they're doing that, but what we're finding is that only 5% of users are making purchases. The other 95% of people who play these games are playing for free, essentially. And so there's an opportunity for advertisers and for publishers to find a way where in-app purchase or these microtransactions can coexist with advertising. And so I think that's something that we're very excited about for the future. In addition to like the multi-screen world, is finding this ecosystem where in-app purchase and advertising can exist in the same game.
Great. Well, that was a great sort of transition to our next set of questions, which will be open to the four of you broadly. So to start out, I mean, we were just talking about King.com, how they're making a ton of money, they're going to IPO, and they've eliminated advertising because they don't want to essentially be involved with what brands are doing. What have you guys seen that brands are doing well? Because clearly there are lots of opportunities out there.
So one thing definitely that has been evolving is that brands are just understanding the game space way better than they have historically. So, you know, if I ratchet back 3 or 4 years, you know, brands would come to a publishing platform and want to make an entirely custom experience, a game from scratch, have it be entirely about their product, and run an audience through it as really a long-form advertisement for a particular product. You know, for us in the television business, it's the same as coming and saying, listen, we have, you know, an idea for a show about moisturizing lotion. We'd like to put it on your network, and we'd like some, you know, to have great ratings. You know, the game space, I think what we're seeing is the production values of games are going way up as certainly the revenue opportunities accelerate. And those brands that understand how to play inside the natural ecosystem of the games platforms are finding huge success. So, you know, some examples of that are, you know, integrations for brands and for marketers where you're inside the natural flow of the game. A lot of you may be familiar with certainly a lot of the Zynga platforms do this very well, where there are virtual goods associated with a particular brand. Capital One does this very elegantly. We were talking about Hellmann's Mayonnaise and LG refrigerators that do mini games inside of the core game infrastructure, and we do the same thing. So, in the casual game space, which is where we tend to operate, we call it the holy trinity of game types, which is essentially bingo, solitaire, and slots. Now, you go into a media buyer and you say, "Hey, I've got an idea. We can talk about bingo, solitaire, slots," and their eyes roll back in their head, and you don't get very far in the conversation. But what is emerging is that if I tell you we have 16 game categories on our platforms, the 3 that I just mentioned make up 85% of time spent in the game play and in audience retention and in engagement. It definitely changes the worldview about where is the audience. And when you weave into the natural flow of the marketing infrastructure of a publishing platform like ours, so if we know that that's where our audience is going, that's where our highest retention is, then integrating into those games takes advantage of the natural marketing infrastructure of the site. So we, the platform, are already marketing into those particular experiences. And so the brand gets a double benefit effect, where if you really add up the sponsorship package, the benefit of us already having core marketing driving into those games lowers your effective CPM a ton, because you're taking advantage of all the editorial real estate on the site that's already driving into those experiences. We create mini games, for instance, in so that we have an insurance product we're building, because in many of the social casino games, you have an opportunity as a player to say, "Hey, do you want to buy insurance on this next drop of the cards?" Well, what a perfect place to introduce an insurance advertiser to say, "Listen, we, the sponsor, will sort of gift you this next play experience." Another one where there's a metagame that you're traveling around the world, and what a natural place then to have travel sponsors of JetBlue or Orbitz that are integrated into that particular part of the consumer experience. And I think we're seeing more and more brands adopt themselves into that kind of integration, to huge benefits, to Ari's point. I mean, the what you see in just retention and recall metrics goes through the roof. And so it's it's the one trend I think we've gotten most excited about.
For us, I think it breaks down, do you want a game experience or do you want a brand experience? And it's a fundamental question, because where we are right now is we as a marketplace have embraced gamification. We've embraced skills-based games. We've now to weave a brand narrative into an existing game, and love what MediaBrix does. I think it's phenomenal, but it really is. But as a complement to that, it's thinking about gamification in different ways. It's thinking about using the power of skills-based games, but it's also thinking about creating an experience that is gamified, that is truly a brand experience. Is it exciting for Chevy to have a brand message inserted into a skills-based game? Or is it fun for Chevy to have a tutorial on driving a standard car like their Chevy Spark that they launched with us? That was a lot of fun. Getting user-generated content, building a community, creating a social graph out of a social action. Those are the things that gamification is expert at. And where we're really pushing at Dailybreak is we're pushing on a sales ROI. We can show that we can identify a prospect, we can engage a prospect, we can deliver a lead, and we can close a sale. And that's gamification. And that's not 5 minutes on the subway that's wasted. Not to say that any game time is wasted, but that's 5 minutes building towards a sale. And that matters.
That was powerful. I'm going to just give one example of something that's somewhat unique. That's not I'd call a technical brand insertion into a game that I think leverages the scale of gaming across the board and leverages IAP as well. So I'll give an example of a brand like a FedEx who wants to be associated with speed. So instead of just doing value exchange and helping out a user power up at a certain point. Through our platform, we work with hundreds of games. We only tie them to speed-related IAP. So every single time a user needs more speed to get through a level, if it's like an infinite running type game, FedEx is associated with that. So you actually associate brand attributes back with the IAP, which is, frankly, you would think that'd be hard to do, but it's really not, because these people, these game developers, have massive catalogs of different IAP, and you can easily find brand attributes to tie back to those to create a really scalable brand experience. That's my one example.
I think when I look at games in brand advertising, I see what gaming has done. I like to look at it in redeeming versus rewarding, and I think, like many times as we talked earlier about just standard banner advertising, where it's like, hey, I'm a brand, I'm throwing up a coupon, for 50 cents off a Starbucks, a cup of coffee. What's interesting is seeing what Starbucks has done with gamification, and that you can download the Starbucks app, and I get this little cup, and as I go in and purchase a cup of coffee, I get to fill a cup of coffee with stars. And as soon as I get enough stars in my little virtual cup of coffee, then I can go redeem for a free cup of coffee. And so I think it's interesting in the engagement that games has with its users and with advertisers, that rather than just an advertiser handing out a free coupon or something and hoping that the user redeems it, a brand can come in and say, hey, we want to reward you with something. So do an action, be engaged with the game or with our own application. And so this idea of rewarding users for engaging with your brand rather than just throwing a coupon out there and hoping that it sticks. And so I like to look at some of the cool things that some of these advertisers are doing. Red Robin, I think, has got a cool application where you can toss the onion ring. I don't know if you guys have ever been to Red Robin, but the onion rings are awesome. They have the sauce; it's fantastic. But their mobile application, you have this game where it's like I can just toss the onion ring and try to get it on the little thing, right? It's fantastic, and I just play that game, and it's fun, and it's like it makes me hungry. It makes me want to order onion rings when I sit down at Red Robin, and so it's a nice way that the advertiser, that the brand is trying to gamify the sit down experience when you're in their restaurant. It's fantastic. Something that is completely different is Ellen DeGeneres. I'm not sure how many of you guys watched the Ellen DeGeneres show, but they decided to make their own game, and they called it Heads Up. Have you guys? How many has ever played Heads Up before? Not too many in here. Okay. Heads Up is a fantastic game. They're like, hey, you know what? We're going to build some random game based off like charades, and you literally download the application and you put your phone up to your forehead like this, and it says like Justin Bieber or something, and the person across from you has to sing a Justin Bieber song or him a Justin Bieber song, and if they get it right, then and you guess it, like, oh, it's Justin Bieber, then you go down and back up, and it switches through and you have 60 seconds to play. Anyway, that app, when it was released, went straight to number 3 on the iTunes charts, and it's just neat how brands, like Ellen DeGeneres, the show itself, can just say, hey, we're going to develop this game and kind of associate it. It's just this fun community thing for the women. It's just neat what brand advertisers can do with games. So those are a couple examples that I've liked.
You're not lying. Those Red Robin onion rings are scrumptious. So we've spoken about what some of the things that brands have done well. What about the flip side to that? What about some of the things that the publishers have done well? And I know you guys have mentioned some very successful programs. And James, you just mentioned one that you specifically like. What are some examples of some of your favorite programs? Me specifically, I love working with some of the larger retail-based programs. I think it's a lot of fun, especially if we can e-commercialize them. But specifically, if you guys have any examples of personal favorites, we can talk about those as well. In addition to talking what some of the studios are doing well.
So one that we executed that I really has opened up a lot of doors for us as a retail program, where we went out and partnered with a jewelry company, and put the consumer experience on both ends of the funnel, as it were. So if you imagine you're on a web page, let's just say it's Land's End for just sake of imagery, and you're looking at a down jacket. What they did, what we did with this jewelry retailer is there was the image of the down jacket, said buy this jacket for $89.99, and right next to it was the same image with a little caption that said win this jacket. And when you clicked on win this jacket, you came into a game competition powered by GSN where you would literally compete to win the jacket. And we prized out both the top of the leaderboard as well as anybody that played sort of went into a sweepstakes to win sort of a random drawing there. On our side of the equation, we promoted the prize. So in this case, it was win diamond earrings from our own platform. So we were driving audience and players into this experience, motivated by the prizing that was contributed by this jewelry company. On the other side, the jewelry retailer now had an engagement mechanism in a shopping and an e-commerce user flow that could give them repeated engagement. So they could activate games inside their e-commerce environment without necessarily having to build a whole games channel or without having to necessarily really do anything. Literally, the only thing they had to do was put the little icon up there of saying win this. But then the win this experience traveled around to different products. So each time the consumer came back the next day, there was a different opportunity to win a different product. And we would run essentially real prize tournaments chasing around that product. And again, so driving in promotion from the GSN properties. And it was a really very effective and interesting way to activate both game mechanics and game experiences to drive the exact sort of retail purchase behavior that Jeff just mentioned.
I'll give you an example of a brand that pushed us, and we ended up with something that they're talking about still, and that is that Hall's Cough Drops. Hall's Cough Drops has a challenge. In the United States, they're viewed as a cough drop. Internationally, they're viewed as a hard candy. And in fact, they find that millennials internationally, all the way into the nightclub scene, people are popping Hall's Cough Drops. And they get a huge, huge market share. And so they came to us and they said, how do we take on the U.S. market? How do we do that through gamification? Well, what they'd come up with was a tagline of let the cool in. So they're talking about millennials. They're talking about a nighttime crowd. We created a program for them, which was Let the Cool In. And what that was asking users after they got educated on Halls through a multi-step engagement we call a challenge, to identify and upload user-generated content photos of the coolest bouncers at the coolest nightclubs across the country. So what they immediately did was created a real-life interaction with the brand, with a community that they never would have on Let the Cool In. There were thousands of bouncers submitted. The awareness for Halls went way up. They were thrilled on a pure cost per engagement model. But that's a brand story using gamification. And those, to me, are the most exciting because they are going to, our user base is going to spend the hours that we're all talking about on, Candy Crush and the rest, and that's terrific. In our mind, it gets them predisposed to engage with the brand using the mechanics of gamification, and that's just an example.
What was the question? This is publisher specific or brand specific? No, all right. I don't have a publisher specific. I've got some brand specific, but how are we doing on time? I see people leaving, so I want to make sure we have another 15 minutes. You want to open up for questions, or we want to answer a couple? You have a couple? Okay. Yeah. All right, I'm going to give one example of leveraging publishers' game mechanics. It was a bespoke program, but I think it was really, really powerful. We worked with OMG Pop prior to getting acquired by Zynga and then subsequently being shut down by Zynga for Draw Something. I don't know if you guys remember the game Draw Something. It was a mega hit. I think they actually had a TV show for a little bit of time. It was actually the reverse. They went from game to TV. But we worked with Lexus, and Lexus had a new car that I'm not sure which class it was, but it was a lower end class, and they wanted to get kind of a mass consumer audience. And OMG Pop allowed us to actually create a custom word pack, and one of the words was Lexus. And people had the opportunity to actually draw Lexuses within Draw Something. And there was 1.2 million people who actually drew pictures of Lexuses. And then from there, people posted it on the Doodle of the Day. And you would be absolutely amazed. Talk about a level of brand engagement. You can't get people to draw a picture of your brand 1.2 million times in any other form of medium. So extremely, extremely powerful, leveraging pre-existing game mechanics. I mean, on Draw Something, it's a blank screen, so you can draw whatever you want, but having a custom word put into that game changed the dynamics for that brand and leveraged, frankly, a user base that was so passionate about drawing. People were just showing off how great they could draw a picture of a Lexus, and you know, Lexus loved that program. So, yeah.
I'll be real quick. The perspective that I want to add is just the technology. I think the technology for publishers is, you know, in order to create, you know, fun and new ad units and ad formats inside of mobile applications is definitely growing and expanding. It's something that Google pays very particular attention to. You know, we're taking the gaming space very serious, and we're trying to develop technologies for these publishers to be able to, you know, make it possible to accept brand dollars, and so that brand advertisers can come in and create, you know, fun ways for users to engage with their ads. So I just, you know, I think a lot of times in the past, and this is where the mobile ecosystem is still very young, is that a lot of it has just been traditional banners, has been the advertising, and, you know, a lot of users have become very sour to just standard banner advertising. And so, you know, we're trying to find new and fun creative ways that give publishers the tools and the technology to be able to create these fun new ad units that will, you know, attract brand dollars and to allow people to come in and engage better with their users. So I think from the technology perspective, like, it's growing, it's increasing, it's good for publishers, it's good for advertisers, and it's good for the users.
There's still this misnomer that gaming is a 17-year-old boy in his underwear playing, you know, some Doom game. That's obviously not the case. Right now, as James mentioned, I think that the number is 7 out of 10 people who own a smartphone are playing games. So not a lot of poor people own iPhones right now, as far as I know, or Samsung Galaxy S's. So it's an extremely, extremely affluent audience, actually. And again, it's a billion people. I don't know what the official number is, 1 billion, 2 billion. It's all, there's hundreds of millions of people playing games. So the diversity from a demographic perspective is there. And there's no question that certain types of games, like a Words with Friends, or games where you actually have to use, or Flow, where you actually have to use your mind in a different way, are attracting a more affluent audience. There's some e-marketer research out there, and I'm sure Jeff's seen it, and I'm sure we can share it with this audience, where actually as affluence goes up, the propensity to play games on your smartphone also increases. So you know, I live in a town, and I commute in from an affluent suburb, and nobody has a newspaper open anymore. These are businessmen wearing suits, playing games on their phones. They might be reading the Wall Street Journal app, you know, for a few minutes, but ultimately they're all playing games right now. So there's no question that there's affluent people out there. And I know it's sometimes it's hard to get your head around it. It's happening. It's real. This is a mass medium. Yeah.
Yeah, just to add, I mean, we will prize out this year over $100 million to 35 to 55-year-old moms. And for that group, what we hear from them is they will literally get up in the morning before their kids wake up to have just that half an hour of totally focused time, and that the consumer experience is, for us, a competitive outlet. It is for a demographic that does not have access to after-work soccer leagues and things to just get out that total sort of zone in on competitive drive, where they will come in and play games because they're so snackable. They'll be in 3 to 5 minute segments. Your spouse is in the shower, you're waiting to go out to dinner, and that presents a whole entertainment window that is perfectly oriented to what is, in fact, to Ari's point, you know, a very attractive demographic that has, you know, fundamental control of purchasing decisions typically inside a household.
You know, we have a unique experience at Dailybreak because we were launched and we were called Campus Live. and we were dedicated to the college audience. And one of the reasons that we had early success is there was no demographic that embraced mobile and smartphone and the connected world like today's college student. And also no group who's more cynical of all those same things. And what we found is that the unit worked for them. As they grew up and moved into the workforce, what we began to see is this bifurcation of people who are connected and not is simply going away. That thinking about a gamer as, you know, that redheaded stepchild in the basement is very, very much a thing of the past. And that when we have brands who are actually selling cars through a gamified experience, as Chevy told us off their last campaign, they sold 18 cars within a week, people they'd never spoken to before. That's meaningful.
And I guess you know, before we close, to your question, I think that there are, again, a lot of stereotypes associated with gaming. Certainly, one of my favorite opportunities is when a brand comes to me and says, "Hey, you know, okay, this gaming space. Well, I'm trying to reach the CEOs of the household. You're not going to reach them through games." Well, two potential examples and opportunities to reach these CEOs is we'll say to the brands, "Okay, so you know, what kind of content do you align with?" And they'll turn around, and the brand, specifically SAP, said, "Well, we're trying to reach people through the NFL. We have a large partnership with the NFL." Well, the great thing about game consoles is that they're not just gaming systems anymore. They're content distribution platforms. They're smart TVs with amazing game opportunities built in. So what we did is we had them develop content, NFL content. They developed a mini-series called This Season, which spoke of the NFL players' experiences during the NFL season, but outside of the playing field. So maybe it was Ray Lewis and how he is involved with his son's high school football team. We added game mechanics to it. We placed it on Xbox, and we placed that exact same content on NFL.com. That content on Xbox outperformed the NFL content on NFL.com. So that's just an example. There are all sorts of data partnerships that studios are doing. So actually being able to match game-specific users to their Nielsen data and their shopping habits and what have you, and being able to utilize the gaming space as a communications platform from anything from banners to video to some of these deeper experiences. So being able to do that, being able to match this user data with their shopping habits and data that they get outside in the real world that we are able to collect, we're able to target them in very, very deep, specific ways that allows us to reach users and these brand targets that you might not necessarily associate with gaming. And it's certainly based on the technology that James spoke about.
I'll say 1.0 of brands engaging in games was when McDonald's built a farm on Farmville, right, on Facebook. And the challenge with social in particular, especially on Facebook, this is less so an issue with mobile, is some people like these games and they feel like the brand is intruding, and you can get backlash. All of a sudden, people start posting, you know, this, I didn't want a McDonald's farm in the middle of my game, right? And if it's done poorly, trust me, users are going to speak out and let it be known that they're not happy. So again, that wasn't my company. That was also, I think, 3 or 4 years ago. And I think game technology and brand engagement has changed tremendously over that time. But I think early on, those were some of the early lessons learned, that you can't just intrude in a game without adding value.
I'll throw myself on the sword. Really, micro-targeting has failed for us. So finding that 18 to 24-year-old in the tri-state area that's going to want to do a store location finder for pet stores, it's going to fail. Hard lesson to learn, but an example that, at least in our world, really micro-targeting on psychodemographics has not been successful.
You know, I would just only say those games where it's not native to the experience at all, always have been stumbling blocks for us. So if we create an entirely custom experience, to some of the points we talked about before, and it's not what the consumer is expecting when they walk in to one of the game platforms, it's both been expensive for the advertiser, it's taken a long time, it's been a failure for us. We haven't been able to drive enough traffic into it because the retention value of the game was horrible, right? It just wasn't a well-constructed game. Everybody's trying to do the right thing, but at the end of the day, you end up with an experience that again, costs a lot of money, doesn't work for anybody, the engagement is really low, and everybody's fairly unhappy at the end.
Yeah, and I guess the best example that I can give isn't necessarily a specific example. It's more of an overarching message. We sell gaming and the right approach on approaching the gaming space, objective, strategy, tactic. It has to be done that way. It's not about finding a really, really cool tactic and then back building your brand into it. You approach the gaming space objective. What are you trying to achieve? This is a strategy that we build out. And finally, we're going to take that information and mold a tactic that specifically drives to your objective. And when we teach that to brands, they're like, okay, I sort of get it, rather than being like, well, what am I supposed to do with this really expensive integration opportunity? That's not for my brand. So, for us, we've seen brands approach this space tactic first because they're sold in and they're salivating over that really cool tactical opportunity. And when that happens, some of these media programs that we've seen don't necessarily deliver the success that they could have had they approached the space the right way. And ultimately, it ends up being a waste of time, money, and effort, which is certainly not something that brands enjoy. So that's probably my best example. But I know that we're out of time. We're definitely around if you guys have any questions. Thank you so much for your time. And if you want onion rings, James will be there. You can ask him questions as well.